Welcome back, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston. He is your host, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, after all the talk we've heard all off season, all throughout the season, Arkansas coming into Lexington 1-6 in the SEC, they find a way to get a win with John Calipari, Adu Thiero, DJ Wagner, and Big Z. Find a way to beat us 89-79 in an electric Rupp Arena. What are your initial thoughts, and how are you feeling after the weekend?
Tell you, it sucked. Sunday I woke up fighting the hangover from hell while also having to scroll Twitter and just see Arkansas fans get their shots in, and they deserved it. We obviously talked all week. I predicted a 30-point Kentucky win. I was only off by 40 points, so not the best performance out of myself. Yeah, I mean, without going into the actual game breakdown, we'll get into that here in a minute, but just what it means is it sucked. By far I think the worst loss of the season so far after Tuesday night when I said probably the most impressive win of the season. You follow it up with, this performance. I mean, regardless of who was on that other sideline coaching, it's just not a good basketball team, flat out. And you got kind of dominated in the second half and lost. And, for a day where the feeling around Lexington and UK fans everywhere, you were down there. I was up here at, the sports bars, Barleycorns, a few hours before the game, and like people were already excited for it. Just to come out and have that performance with all the excitement built up, you'll talk about the environment in the arena, but just around town and around northern Kentucky, it was awesome, and just to come out and kind of lay that egg is extremely disappointing.
Yeah, I don't even know if disappointing kind of sums it all up. This weekend, the whole lead up, I mean, there was fans packed outside the front of Rupp Arena, I think at 8 a.m. I
Yep.
got there around noon, 1, downtown Lexington. And, I posted a video to our socials of how there were students lined up fully around Rupp Arena, waiting to get in for that game. And for Kentucky to come out and let John Calipari and that smirk smile run off the floor with the win, very, very disappointing to say the least. But I told you this, off air. This Arkansas team reminds me of that Ohio State game earlier in the season. Just athleticism is really what killed you. Obviously, in that Ohio State game, we didn't shoot nearly as good as we did in this one. But you can just tell there's a point in time where we just get out-athleted, and we really don't have anything to make up for that, especially with all the injuries that we have sustained with Lamont Butler and Kurt Risa right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make excuses, right? Arkansas was without Boogie Flan, so like you can't come out and play the injury card. But I am going to say, like, we talked about it earlier in the year when Lamont was out with the rolled ankle. Like, it's just such a different team without him. And then when you look at it, Carr not 100%. He's got to play very limited minutes, and when he's out there, he's not the same guy. So like, everybody's obviously getting bumped up into this further role. Like, if you have Lamont and Kerr, guys like Travis Perry aren't playing. Amador goes from being probably your seventh man to, now he's a starter and he's thrown out there for 25 minutes. So there's just a lot of factors. But again, no Boogie Flan for Arkansas. They came in and balled out, and yeah, just the point of Cal. There's probably nothing worse. I mean, as bad as he's been this year, as bad as he's been for years in past, like you saw the best of John Calipari. I was listening to KSR today, and I heard a guy call in, so give this caller a shout out. But he gave the old Toby Keith line, right? Like, Cal's not as good as he once was, but he's good once as he ever was. And Saturday, you saw the best of John Calipari and the best of Adu Thiero and DJ Wagner.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I think we both expected Adu to come in here and get his. We didn't have a guy who could match up with him in his lateral quickness. So we expected Adu to have the game that he did. I mean, he had 21 points and 8 rebounds in this game. I mean, Adu is he's really turned that corner and made himself into a very good player. I think we expected Z to be able to hit some threes. Obviously, Amari pushed him around the entire game, and that was really the only thing that kept us in this ball game was Z's ability or inability to guard Amari. down there on the defensive side of the ball. I think the real thing that kind of just pushed Arkansas over the edge, obviously they shot 13 of 25 from 3-point range. I mean, that's the most threes they've made all season, and this is the second most points they've scored all season. So obviously they were feeling good inside Rupp Arena. The crowd booing them probably gave them a little bit of extra juice, a little bit more motivation to play because, I mean, right now they're still fighting for their tournament lives. Obviously, you and I both think that's a very uphill climb for them to make the tournament. But I tell you what, I was really impressed with DJ Wagner, especially in the second half. First half, I think, a little timid, little afraid to be back in Rupp Arena. But as soon as first half, they had John L. Davis get them a lot of that scoring. Second half, they transitioned that to DJ Wagner with just consistent points from Adu. Really, they just played a complete game. I mean, there were lulls where they couldn't really score, but they never really turned the ball over like Kentucky did and didn't really beat themselves like I felt like the Cats did.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Kentucky beat themselves, especially in the second half. But we saw a game plan similar to what we talked about defensively. Like, we don't really have guys that can stay in front of really anybody. Like, especially, that's how John Calipari builds his teams. He wants guys that can beat people off the dribble. It's everything we've criticized. The opposite, it was just so happened we were sagging off and, some guys made some threes. They shot their best percentage from the 3-point line. I think for that point, you just kind of shake their hand. But, to the other side of it, the Kentucky side was just the sloppiness again. Another game with double-digit turnovers. Felt like there were times people weren't getting on the floor to get loose balls. I mean, Amari, if it's not for him, we lost by double digits. I mean, you could lose by 30 without Amari. I mean,
Pretty easily.
he was incredible. He keeps following up like his best game as a Cat with another maybe best game as a Cat, 22 and 11, and we're gonna get into it, but I mean, he's got to play more than 25 minutes. This team is just not good enough down low without him playing. He's got to play at least 30 plus, and I would argue if it's not for foul trouble, he should be playing 35. And he's a guy, I think, even if he picks up 2 fouls in the first half, you almost just got to kind of leave him out there and roll the dice because the drop off between him and Garrison is so substantial.
Completely agree with you, and we'll dive a little bit further into that little later on in the podcast. But I did want to continue to talk about just the Arkansas box score until we flip over to the Cats. I mean, 17 assists, only 8 turnovers, 10 steals for him as well. Already mentioned 13 of 25 from 3, shot 55% from the floor in total. And I mean, just contributors all around. I mean, DJ Wagner, this is the quickest I've seen him side to side laterally with the ball in his hands. And he was finishing at the rim, something we never saw him do in a Kentucky uniform. And John L. Davis had not been nearly the player they thought they were getting this year. And in this game has 18 points on 50% shooting and even gets you 5 rebounds. Just a bunch of guys for Arkansas stepped up that really hadn't been stepping up all year. And I think that's what led to ultimately the Cats' demise outside of them with their own turnovers.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you kind of almost have to shake their hand and just say, you got really good performances from guys that haven't performed well all season and, probably won't down the stretch. I mean, Nelly Davis, we know what kind of player he is. The guy's phenomenal. It felt like it just wasn't vibing with Cal, but, maybe with Boogie out, he kind of can slide more into that dominant, scoring role. And you obviously saw, especially in the first half, I thought, he was phenomenal. But yeah, and then on the Kentucky side, like only 11 assists again, like another very low assist game. I would venture to say, I don't have the stats in front of me, but like all the games we probably score under 80, it's because we're not really having a ton of assists. Early in the year, we were pushing 16, 17, 18, sometimes 20 assists to, 10 turnovers. Like that's the difference.
I completely agree. The ball movement wasn't really there. So with this team on Saturday, I mean, it just seemed like outside of Amari and Jackson for spells of this game, nobody was comfortable offensively or defensively. It seemed like Amari was able to, kind of get his own on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we've talked about ball screen defense and pick and roll defense till we've been blue in the face. This is another big problem with it. We still haven't figured out how to properly, set the edge, but also be able to contain the pick guy as well. And that's where you saw Z do his only damage, 4-7 from 3. I don't want to get in on Z because, boy, this would be a 45-minute podcast on my hatred for that kid. But let's go ahead and flip it to the Kentucky side of the ball. Just going down the stats like we normally do. We got to start with Amari Williams. 22 points, 11 rebounds, forced 7 fouls to be called, and 9 of 13 from the field. Just Amari's best game as a Cat so far. And like you mentioned a little bit earlier, he just keeps continuing to go best game, best game, best game. And he's really, really looking comfortable and looks like he's starting to find his footing in the SEC. And with that footing and with that comfortability that he's been getting, I think you're starting to see the effort start to ramp up so far this year. And only guy that was on the positives in this game for the plus minus, he was +4. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later. The drop off when he leaves the floor is just crazy.
Yeah, another game of Amari just being really good and being the player, that we thought we were getting all season. And, part of why I was so critical of Amari early in the year is because, that this guy's there, right? And we're starting to see it, and I think we'll continue to see it. But, you saw it. I mean, the broadcast at one point picks the worst time to talk about Z being taller than Amari. They're like, this is the first guy he's playing against that's probably giving him some length issues, and Amari just shoves him to the ground and lays the ball in and stares over him. I thought that was pretty well timed out, but just pushed him around, asserted his dominance. The 11 rebounds. He's still turning the ball over a little bit, but I think with the way this offense is going, he almost has to. We're forcing the 6'11" guy to facilitate the offense. I mean, there's going to be mistakes in there, but I thought he was excellent. Another game of just really, really good basketball from Amari, and my only complaint is that he didn't play enough.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's got to get more minutes, especially with what comes in after him. But I do want to say, obviously we want to start to limit those turnovers. 4 turnovers in a game from your 5-man, even though he does initiate a lot of the offense, especially in this game, is not something that you want to see. But we have to have guys ready to fire off an Amari Williams pass and off of screens and set downs like that. Because I couldn't tell you, just Ansley himself had 2 wide open threes that he passed up because he just wasn't ready to catch the ball. Ansley would have had, at least 2 more clean looks at it in this game. Kobe Bryant the same. I think Amari got robbed with only having 3 assists in this game. I think he probably should have had 5, 6 at the minimum. These guys, especially when we're talking about Ansley and Kobe specifically, that is your role with this team. You are a shooter. You're a spot-up shooter. Obviously, we saw Kobe's ability to do a little bit more of that against Tennessee. But we still got to remember he's one of the best shooters in the country. He's got to be ready to fire, especially Ansley Almanor as well, as he really doesn't give you that off-the-dribble threat.
No, I agree completely. This team, we've talked about it multiple times, but, the issue with them not shooting open shots, and I think you bring up a good point of a lot of times they're just not ready to catch the ball in a shooting position. And then there's times where, I do still feel like these guys are passing up open shots. And especially, when you have Colin Chandler out there, you're really eliminating who can shoot. So when you do have your 4 shooters with Amari, they got to be ready to fire.
Completely agree with you. And we'll get to Colin Chandler a little bit later, but I really did think he gave you really good minutes in this game, especially on the defense side of the ball. Still don't understand why Pope made him the ball carrier, or not the ball carrier, but the ball handler down the stretch. Not sure. There's a lot of things that I'm going to question Coach Pope from in this game. I genuinely think he got outcoached in this game. But again, as much as we criticize Coach Cal, he has it in him when he wants to. He had a full week to prepare for this game. This was his Super Bowl so far. He's a Hall of Fame coach. So when we say Coach Pope got outcoached in this game, it's nothing to really scoff at. Just he's got to figure out how to win without having Lamont and Kerr especially. Let's go ahead and dive in a little to some other guys here. Ansley Almanor, 24 minutes, 12 points, 4 of 6 shooting, and 3 of 5 from 3. Thought Ansley was good in this game. I thought he's playing the 4 right now, which unfortunately for him, he's really out of position playing the 4 in this offense. He's got to be able to give you more than 3 rebounds, though. 2 of those were on the offensive end, so give him credit for that. He was able to give you that. If he's not going to be able to play solid defense like he hasn't been able to all year. He's going to have to be able to rebound the ball a little bit better, especially playing at the 4. Because right now, it's Amari gets the rebound, or this team's just not getting the rebound.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't foresee it getting any better. Maybe when Carr's healthier. He had 4 in 15 minutes. Maybe when he's a little healthier, that kind of helps and fixes itself a little bit. But like Ansley's he's just not going to be a guy that gets a lot of rebounds. I feel like every stat line over the last 5 games since Carr's been out, or 3 games since Carr's been out, has been the exact same. He gives you 12 points and 3 rebounds, like on the number. This time he only made 3 threes. The other times I think it's been 4 threes, but it's the exact same points and rebounds, and probably the 2 assists as well. But yeah, I thought Ansley was solid. I wouldn't say he was unbelievable by any stretch or played great. But I also don't think he's the reason for, your 11 or 10-point loss.
Yeah, agree with you there. I mean, we also got to remember, like you said earlier in the start of this podcast, this was like your 3rd guy off the bench when everybody was healthy. Obviously, we can't keep using the injury bug as an excuse. We're going to have to figure out ways to adapt to it. But, I mean, he's giving you 12 points each of the past 3 games on the money. He's shooting very good from 3. I mean, he's playing his role still. I mean, we'll get into it later. There's some guys that just aren't stepping up to that role. Ansley is a guy who has, obviously, he's exceeded both of our expectations so far this year, especially in SEC conference play. Let's go ahead and switch over to somebody I'm going to be very critical of, especially in this game, and honestly, the last 3 games in particular. Otega Owe, he just seemed like he had no interest in being in this game or even on the floor. He had 6 points in the first half, really didn't get anything going. Adu kind of owned him, kind of just showed that they're the same similar type of ball player, just Adu's better than in almost every single aspect. He had 10 points on 5 of 13 shooting. And the crazy part to me is, coming into this game, you probably would have said he's our 2nd best rebounder. That's something that he's been stepping up his game of as of late. He only gets you 2 rebounds, doesn't have a single assist. And, I made this joke during the game, Jacob. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg, where she's the basketball coach. If you remember Stacey Patton, she called him the black hole of basketball because he just won't pass the basketball. I'm about ready to say that with Otega. I mean, there was multiple times in this game where he's starting to drive, and there's an open flasher to the corner like Ansley or like Kobe, or Amari's rolling to the dish. I mean, if he's going to be our primary ball handler and, attacking the rim like he should be, he finishes better than Lamont does, but he can't see the court nearly like Lamont does as well. He's got to be able to pass the ball and find open guys, especially if you're going to shoot 5 of 13 and provide no sort of 3-point threat.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when you told me you were going to be critical of Owe before, I was kind of prepared to debate you, but as we're talking, it's all true points. And, another tough game from the plus-minus standpoint for him. I still feel like he's really good, and he should still be probably one of your better players. But yeah, to your point, and maybe it's because Lamont's not out there, so we're seeing him out of position a lot. But I mean, it's definitely not the same guy that we saw early in the year, especially from shooting the basketball. I mean, his shot he's not, 1, taking jump shots. 2, there's no confidence when he does. I still feel like he's obviously the best option at attacking the basket. But to your point, he's not passing out of a double team when he beats his man. I remember a couple times, like you said, where, Ansley or whoever's in the corner and there's no look. I remember a time maybe where even Amari was kind of rolling to the basket with him, and Otega just kind of takes it up. As far as the defense, Adu's a guy that I figured was going to kill whoever we put on him. I think Otega can give you some stuff, kind of away from the ball, reading passes and stuff, but you got to have Lamont out there to be your best on-ball defender, and right now we're making that be Otega, and he's just not good enough at it. And again, to your point, he's not rebounding. I feel like I'm just agreeing with every point you made, but I mean, you made some good ones, so I'm not gonna disagree. He's definitely over the last 3 games been disappointing, and he's got to be better. And plus minus doesn't tell a whole story, but it definitely tells something. And when you're minus 16 in a game you lose by 10, I would say it's a pretty glaring issue.
And something that I've been thinking about, even going back to before we got Jackson Robinson really going, it seems like when Lamont is not good to go, you're getting the best out of Jackson Robinson. And when Lamont is good to go, that's when you're going to get the best out of Otega Owe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to go and look at the stats just to prove that. But that just from watching
Feels
the
right.
game, that's exactly what it feels like. And that's kind of hitting back to my point of the lineups that we've been playing. I don't know what you do when Lamont does come back with how healthy he is, but you have to make these rotations. We've got to be able to switch these rotations a little bit because right now, as soon as the starters come off the floor, it's just a landslide as soon as they come off. We see it in this game. As soon as Amari switched out for Brandon Garrison, they went on a 5-0 run as soon as you could snap, like as soon as the ball was inbounded. And it's just easy to tell at this point. I mean, talking about Jackson Robinson here in this game, 20 points, 3 rebounds on 6 of 9 shooting, 4 of 6 from 3. I mean, 4 of 8 from the free throw line. Obviously, we need that to get better, especially considering he missed 2 on a 3-point foul and 2 off a flagrant foul as well. Got to have him hit those free throws. I mean, I think you're getting exactly what you expected and wanted from Jackson Robinson. He's an okay defender. He's not going to be able to stay in front of guys like DJ Wagner and guys like that. But for the most part, if he's not playing out of position at point guard, he's going to be able to defend more than likely who's in front of him. And he's been a great scoring threat as of late. And especially in this game, it's definitely his most efficient. I thought he was good in this game. Obviously, the defense leaves a little bit to be desired. But, I mean, outside of Amari, who's playing well on this defense anyways.
Yeah, and real quick before I comment on Jackson, just to your point of the lineups, there's been a lot of questionable ones, and I get it. Like Pope's working on, shorthanded roster. Obviously 3 guys injured, 2 out, 1 playing limited minutes. So you're trying to make the best of what you can on the fly. So like, I'm not trying to be overly critical of it, but like when you have these guys out, like there can't be a time where you're putting, Travis Perry, Conlon Chandler in together, and then there was even a time where it was those 2 and BG. Like that can't be happening. You have to. We're in February, right? These guys are in good condition, the ones that are not injured. Like, there's no reason that Amari and Jackson Robinson shouldn't be playing 35-plus minutes. Like, they can do it. You look at it on the other side, John L. Davis and DJ Wagner each played 38 minutes. I mean, you gotta let your stars be on the floor. And I know Pope's always had kind of a big rotation that's his style, but with this bench currently with guys out, like I just don't think you can do it flat out.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, completely agree.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
But yeah, in regards to Jackson, I thought it was another really good game. My only complaint really is that I don't think he shot enough. 6 and 9, right back to Nelly Davis and DJ Wagner. They both shot 13 and 14 shot attempts. I would have been much happier with, Robinson having the 13 that Owe took, especially coming out and 3 for 3 from behind the arc, in the first 10 minutes of the game, and the rest of the way he only takes 3. Like, 1, this team overall needs to shoot more threes, but 2, like, Jackson scored 20 and was extremely efficient doing it on 9 shots, but like, part of me just wants to yell at him, like, just shoot more. I don't care if your percentage goes down or you're slightly less efficient and you're only scoring a little more. Like, just the offense looks so much better when he's got the ball in his hands, and I would like to see him be a little more aggressive. But other than that, no complaints. I thought he was phenomenal again, especially on the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm going to agree with you. I'd like to see Jackson get more shots up. Specifically in this game, I mean, he was having trouble getting the ball up the floor with DJ on him. And even I know they had some rotations where a dude was lined up with him one-on-one.
Yeah.
Just not great matchups for Jackson on that side. And that mainly happened towards the second half when they started pressuring the ball full court. You know how Cal does. It's just one guy pressure, just a little bit of phantom pressure there. But, I mean, it was really getting to Jackson there for a bit. And I think that's kind of why you saw them not necessarily not nearly as effective, just not as aggressive in the second half. But, to that point, that's where guys like Otega have to step up. If he's going to be – he's your leading scorer, and he takes the most shots on this team. He's got to be able to be – that's where he's got to be able to become a threat. When Jackson's getting pressed like that, especially no Lamont, no Kerr. Otega's got to step up. feels like last three. I mean, even going back to the Alabama game, feels like he just hasn't necessarily been there. I mean, that's really all I can say regarding Ortega and Jackson. Jackson's doing exactly what we wanted them to, especially going back 3 weeks ago. We were kind of hoping, we were like, man, where is Jackson Robinson? When are we going to see the light turn on? Especially that Texas A&M game really got the switch flip there. You almost saw the switch flip. I mean, with Amari, who was in that Georgia game. Since then, they both have played very well almost every game since then. And I think we're 4-4 since that time. It's weird.
Well, yeah, I mean 4-4 in the conference, and your first conference game was Florida, so yeah, 3-4 since then, I guess.
Yeah, and it just seems like even though those two are playing at a really high level, we're still not able to. I mean, obviously we can't string together wins. We see that you beat Tennessee in Knoxville, and then you come home and lose to one of the worst teams in the SEC. Just kind of shows you what's been going on with this Kentucky team so far this year. A guy who also I thought really underperformed in this game, Kobe Brea, 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting, grabbed 4 rebounds. I mean, had 2 turnovers. But him and Ortega both did the same thing in this game where they'd make a turnover and they just failed to get back on defense after the turnover. They hung their head. I mean, just the effort wasn't there from either one of these two, and especially with the amount of minutes that they were both getting. I'm not sure what you thought of Kobe's game in general, but I thought it left a lot to be desired, especially coming off of what we thought might have been his best game at Tennessee.
Yeah, I thought he was, I mean, he grabbed 4 rebounds. That's tied for second most on the team.
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, that is. But yeah, I thought outside of shooting the three, some of the other stuff on the offensive side just wasn't there. I don't know if it was game planning or what, but we saw him kind of get to the rim and attack versus Tennessee. He goes from shooting 10 free throws against Tennessee or 7 against Tennessee and shooting none again, right back to kind of where he was before. So yeah, I don't really feel like he built off of that Tennessee performance. Unfortunately, I did make a note, like, there can't be a time that you have Andrew Carr, Perry, and Brea out there at the same time. Like, yeah, that team might be able to shoot as well as any lineup that you have, but like those 3 defensively, like especially Andrew Carr hurt, like those 3 can't be out there. That's just another lineup that I don't think you can string together.
Yeah, to your point, this team, you have to do what Coach Calipari did in this game, honestly. I mean, you just got to have those 5 have just got to play the minutes, and especially until you get guys healthy. Those 5 have to be the guys. I would say minimum of those starters, each one of them has to play 30-plus minutes.
Well,
and I think that's bare minimum. That includes Amari. I mean, we haven't even tried it with Amari. What was it? 28, I think, is the most minutes he's had in any game so far this season. We've got to get the guy more time. At the least, if you put him out there for 35 minutes against Ole Miss and you see the clear drop-off, then okay, then we can start working to other options. But the guy we're going to talk about next, Brandon Garrison, you see the distinct drop-off from when Brandon Garrison comes in versus when Amari Williams is in. Garrison in this game, 2 points, 3 rebounds in 14 minutes, 1 of 4 from the floor with a turnover. And probably the most crucial moment of the game, takes a step back 3. Arkansas gets a run out, gets a steal on the very next inbound. We go from down 4 to down 9 in just a blink of an eye. Game's almost over. We never really come back. And just a quick stat before I forget it. In the past 3 games, Brandon Garrison's plus minus, it's minus 38. And that includes a win at Tennessee. I mean, I really don't know what else more there is to say. You see that Amari's plus 4 in this game. It's just, what can we do? He just can't. He's got to be a guy who comes in and treats it almost like we treated Travis Perry to an extent, where he just comes in and gives you those filler minutes until Amari's good to go.
Yeah, agree. And when you were talking about the starters and what they need to play, like, I think at minimum, Amari and Jackson got to be the guys that are getting the bulk of your minutes. And then when Lamont's back, you can, throw him in, a guy that I think needs to play 35 plus. But right now, everything needs to be built around Amari and Jackson, and that includes them playing for as much as possible and for majority of a game. Like, these are college kids that play twice a week at most. Like, these guys are conditioned well enough to play more than 33 minutes and 25 minutes. But yeah, BG has been extremely disappointing in SEC play, and to your point, especially the last 3 games, that plus minus is atrocious, and it tells a story every game. You see in these losses, the biggest drop off is from when Amari comes out and Garrison plays, and you see it in the plus minus, an 18-point difference in a 10-point game. I mean, even if BG just goes out there and just doesn't kill you, you could win this basketball game, but he's such a liability offensively and defensively. You know, a few weeks ago you asked me why, like, I didn't think you could play BG and Amari together like you do with Carr. Like, Garrison likes to shoot threes. Like, I get it, but like, dude, if he's not wide open, and I mean wide open where he catches and can look around for a second or two and make sure no one's coming out with him, I don't want him shooting the 3. That step back 3 was, to your point, the killer in the game. Down 4 to down 9 in the blink of an eye because he tried a step back 3. He shot 4 shots, and I almost feel like it's 4 too many. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't defend. There's a conversation to be had about how much he should play. And I think when you get Carr back, I think when you want to give Amari breaks, you just go small. I mean, especially with the way Ansley's been playing, you know, you can kind of substitute. This doesn't need to be a 10-man rotation, even when healthy. Like, this can get trimmed down, and BG is a guy that you can maybe just get away with giving him 4 or 5 minutes a game, and I think you'd be fine.
Yeah, and I kind of want to just throw in another stat here. Just over the past 2 games, Amari Williams is plus 24 in the Tennessee and Arkansas game. In those same 2 games, Brandon Garrison is minus 30, a 54-point difference between the two in just 2 games.
So that's absurd. Like, I know it's bad. We talk about it every time, but like, just to hear it out loud is absolutely absurd. And then also in a game you won, you won one of those games by 5. Like, it's unbelievable.
It's crazy to see. And the guy we're going to talk about next, obviously not at 100%. That's Andrew Carr. Played 15 minutes in this game, 3 points, 4 rebounds. I thought he did rebound pretty well, especially for what we're used to from Andrew Carr, and especially going against the size of Jonas Aidoo and Big Z. I thought he did hold his own down there. I mean, gave you an assist, 1 or 2 from the 3-point line. I mean, it's just obvious to see this isn't the Andrew Carr from earlier in the season. He's still wearing that like heating pad on his back throughout the entire game. I'm just not sure if it's a time where you sit him down to try and hopefully have him 100% here in a couple weeks, or if you just have to roll him out there because, like you and I both agree, you have no confidence in Brandon Garrison to give you these minutes right now.
Yeah, as crazy as it is and as bad as Carr's looked because of injury, I'm still taking him over a healthy Garrison right now. I mean, so maybe you do have to, you know, kind of keep throwing him out there. But yeah, I don't want to be too critical one or positive one way or the other with Carr, just because, like, I don't know about the injury, right? Like, to your point, he's still putting the heating pad on. He obviously doesn't look like the same player he was early in the year, so I gotta feel it's mostly injury. And, you know, only being able to play 15 minutes is obviously a big factor. He still, you know, had one of the better plus minuses on the team and only -1. I still feel like he gave you some good minutes, 4 rebounds. So I don't know. I can't be too critical one way or the other. I thought, considering the injury and all things considered, I thought he played pretty well in the limited minutes.
Yeah, he played all right. He's still, I mean, obviously he's still that liability on the defensive end that he has been, and it's, you know, showing a little bit more with that back injury. But if you would have told me we get a 25 combined minutes from Travis Perry and Colin Chandler, and their combined plus minus is only -5, I would have signed up for that. I thought Travis, obviously, you know, this is a game he couldn't play as much as maybe you would want to for him on the offensive side, trying to stick in front of DJ Wagner and Jonas Aidoo and even potentially Adu in this game. But I kind of want to talk just about Colin Chandler. I mean, we're at the point now, he's your best on-ball defender. Will he get beat for 4 to 35 back screens a game, maybe. But you know how much we've seen that floppy action that Cal runs. John L. Davis had his way with that action earlier in the game. And in the second half, he put Colin Chandler on him and kind of really stopped that. And then obviously after that, they let DJ kind of cook, let him get downhill and score at will there at the end. But I was super impressed with what I saw from Colin Chandler on the defensive side of the ball. I don't agree with him being the primary ball handler late in the game, like I mentioned earlier. But I think it's good to see him getting at least confidence on the defensive side of the ball because that's where we need our help the most at the moment.
Yeah, I thought he played really well, especially in the second half, to the point of John L. Davis, 12 points in the first half, only 6 in the second. And I think a lot of that was, not when Colin Chandler was on him. So, I don't know, Chandler gives you nothing offensively, so you got to play him, I think, in the correct lineup and at the correct times. I know you don't want him to be the primary ball handler, but at the same time, what do you do when both of your point guards are hurt and you can't really rely on Travis Perry in that situation? So I don't know. But yeah, over the last 2 games, Colin Chandler's the guy that's flipped the script the most. In my eyes, it was. We're a week away from when we were talking at Vandy that he can't play. I literally think I came on here and said this guy's not even a Horizon League D1 player right now. And I didn't mean it to be mean, but he wasn't. He looked completely lost out there, and now he's guarding, a fifth-year senior that's been one of the best players in college basketball over the last 4 years, and he's guarding him straight up. So, hats off to that kid. He obviously is working his butt off, getting back from the Mormon mission, and becoming a real solid player. He's got to figure it out offensively. Hopefully that'll come the more he plays organized basketball. But yeah, without Lamont, I do think he's your best on-ball defender right now.
Yeah, and especially with I kind of do want to call it out. I do think I have huge effort concerns with Otega Owe. Especially when you see a game like this when his shot's not falling, he checks himself out of the game. I thought he did that very early in this game against Arkansas. And I know we were very critical of Amari Williams earlier in the year for his lack of effort. I think you've got to start looking at that at Otega, especially. I've been telling you, even off air, since that Alabama game, his effort on the defense side of the ball has been nowhere near what it was before that. I don't know if that's something you agree with or if it's something maybe I'm looking a little too much into. I'd like to hear your side.
Yeah, definitely where I was coming from with Amari, I can't give Otega a pass, But early in the year, non-conference, Otega was definitively our second best defender, and he was our most consistent player. And he still scored 10 points every game, but we've seen a few of those games. He's gotten a bunch of them kind of late game free throws or whatever the case may be to extend that streak.
The last bucket in this game to get 10.
Yeah, but no, I do defensively he's not been good. Is it because he's playing more physical and athletic teams? Is it because of effort? I don't really know, but there's definitely something. And then I do agree with you that sometimes if the offense isn't going right for him, there is a period where he just checks out. But then he's still in the Alabama game, there's that run that gets us back tied when we were down 8 or whatever, and it was pretty much all sparked by Otega. So, when he's playing well, he's obviously one of the better players in the league. You got to see that consistency from him. And to your point, maybe it is an effort thing where as soon as he's missing some shots or something's not going his way offensively, he just kind of checks out, and you can't have that, especially sitting here on February 3rd.
Especially, it seems like when this team needs him to be that, lockdown primary on-ball defender, it seems like that's when he checks out the most. Yeah. And, I know for a fact I'm alone in the Alabama take when I thought he didn't have a good game because I know he scored 20-plus in that game. But that ball screen defense with Grant Nelson and Sears, they just tore him apart, especially when it was with him. And I don't know what it is. A ball screen, we cannot stop the ball handler. And then if we somewhat do, there's an open 3 for whatever big man's coming next. That's the only reason Z was even a thought about this game. If Z doesn't get those wide open looks, he even airballed a wide open look in this game and still ended up hitting 4 threes. If not, Z might be, teary-eyed walking out of this arena thinking about, what could have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not good. We've gone back and forth on Lamont and his defense, but yeah, I can't defend Oweh guarding a screen right now. I can't make the argument, and it's especially bad when they're putting Garrison's in and they're putting him on the big that's screening. Like, you might as well just go ahead and put 3 points or 2 points up on the scoreboard for the other team and run down, because I mean it's brutal right now.
Yeah, and before we, move off of this game in general, I do want to talk about the coaching throughout this game and Coach Pope because, everybody's being, little, I would say overly sensitive coming off of the Calipari era because it felt like you were either pro Cal or you were against Cal, and it was either you were a Kentucky fan or you were not a Kentucky fan based on that.
Yep.
So everybody's been a little hesitant to be able to critique Coach Pope. And, he said when he first came in, he wants us to critique him. He wants to hear that because the moment we stop doing that, the moment this isn't Kentucky basketball. I thought the lineups and the times in which he made changes in this game were poor, just to say, put it as nicely as I can. And to be able to notice this, like if you and I can notice the instant difference between Amari Williams coming off the floor and Brandon Garrison coming in, I don't get how he's not seeing this. Unless there's something that they know that we do not when it comes to Amari and the amount of minutes that he can play, I don't understand what these lineups are becoming. Because even outside of just that switch, and we had lineups where it was Travis Perry, Colin Chandler, Kobe Brea. I mean, you have no offense in that system. Defense, you have one guy. I think the lineups as of late, even going into that Vandy game as well. I mean, you think we've lost 3 of our last 4 games. I think it's starting to become time where we have to start not necessarily critiquing Coach Pope a little bit more, but at least bringing it to a conversation.
Yeah, I've thought Pope's been great all year, but I can also say that and criticize, moments and instances and the lineups. And part of it, like, he's getting dealt, a short hand at this point in the season with the injury. So like I get it. It's tough. But I mean, this is the territory that comes with being the head coach at Kentucky. Like, there's not excuses, right? You're paid and you're expected to figure it out. And, to his point, he's not shying away from it. But I think if you listen to his post game after the game, he was almost kind of like at a loss for words of like, where does he go with this team, with these players, without Lamont, without Kerr, without Carr at 100%. Like, he was really struggling to find the words of, what to say. And I mean, he's obviously a very smart man, and I still feel like a very good coach. So I think he'll figure it out. But yeah, he's going to have to do something. And if it's just a change in philosophy of saying, you know what, I am going to start playing these guys 35 plus minutes, then so be it. Like that's what I feel like the team needs. And until you're fully healthy, I just think that's what you got to do. Just roll the ball out there with your best guys and go. Shorten this rotation to a 7-8 man rotation at max and just run with it.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And even just as the lineups are concerned, you've tried almost every lineup to see if there's even like a little bit of juice here, a little bit of extra effort that comes from this lineup. Obviously, with 90% of those lineups, it's just not working. So at this point, it's almost your last-ditch effort to just say, hey, let's get these guys 30, 35 minutes a game. Like, if I don't see 30-plus minutes from Amari in this Ole Miss game, I'm probably coming on here Wednesday afternoon, especially if there's a loss, and I'm probably going to be irate, especially if he is playing well and not in foul trouble. Obviously, those are up to Amari, and we'll see how the game plays out on Tuesday night.
I agree. And I don't understand how after the Tennessee game you're not giving Trent Noah a couple minutes. Like, I understand, like, this is an athletic game, but I mean, there's one thing that kid's proven, and that is that he's tough, right? He'll dive on the floor for a loose ball. He'll go out there and fight, and could he guard a dude? Absolutely not, right? Could he probably guard Carter Knox? No. Like, I get it, but the guys you're putting out there weren't doing it either. So, I mean, I didn't understand, especially with just how well he just played 4 nights before that. I don't understand how he doesn't see the floor. I understand if you put him out there for a couple minutes, realize it's not working, but I think he earned an opportunity to be out there at some point.
Yeah, especially with Kobe's inability to shoot at the minimum, it
Yeah.
gives you a offense.
Another
I mean,
shooter,
you've seen him be able to. I mean, he hit that 30-footer against Tennessee. I think he's the second leading shooter on the team just in 3-point percentage.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done enough to at least be able to get a little bit of a run in a game like this. Like you said, if it didn't work out, okay, quick hook, get him out. He's got to get at least a little bit of run. But then again, it's either he gets a little bit of run and we keep trying these different lineups, or it's short in the rotation. I don't like the middle ground of, not giving Noah some looks, but also giving Travis Perry 8 minutes a game. We're going to have to find, we're going to stick one way or the other and just see what works for this team. I do want to switch gears before we get to that Ole Miss game, though, and just talk about some of the former Cats.
Former players? All right, I had it written down. We got to go through it.
I do want to start this off by saying I get Reed Sheppard, Kentucky's own. That was the feel-good story. Also just want to say, Cal didn't do as best as he could for him. Obviously played DJ Wagner and Justin Edwards over him for a lot of that year. Same thing with Rob Dillingham. As a Kentucky fan, I don't really feel the, homegrown talent. I've never really felt that sort of connection with any of these players, even Travis Perry and Trent Noah. I'm not necessarily cheering for them harder because they are from Kentucky. But, I mean, when are we going to stop glorifying Reed Sheppard in his days in a Kentucky uniform? What he averaged, just over 10-plus points a game. I get he shot a good percentage from the field. He was a scrappy player. But if you're just looking at for season stats, I mean, in Kentucky history.
The guy could barely see the floor and became the number 3 overall pick.
That's why I preface I would say.
Yeah, I loved Reed last year. I mean, that's not going to be something crazy to say. I thought he made a huge mistake. I mean, I get it. You want to support Cal. You can't wear an Arkansas shirt. I mean, you could wear a UK Calipari T-shirt. There's plenty of those out there. Like, pick one of those up. You can't go out in the Arkansas shirt. And especially, I mean, it doesn't bother me as much, but like, there's people in Eastern Kentucky that like, they obviously love the kid. He's from there. He grew up there. Mom and dad play at Kentucky. I don't see how you do it. I mean, that guy could have, and he'll still be able to come back. It's not like, at some point fans will get over it, but like, that guy could have retired from, he could go out and, God forbid, have a career-ending injury, and he could have came back to Kentucky and just made a living and been a poster child around here. And to go out and do that, and then, just to kind of laugh about it and say you thought it was funny and you were trying to support Cal, like again, that's your coach. You should support him, but you can't go out in the Arkansas T-shirt. You just can't. And whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to lose sleep about it. But yeah, some of the other former players I think made me a little more upset, especially.
Yeah. Personally, that's the one that made me the most upset, just because of the connection,
from here.
and how much that the fans like connected and like pushed him to be like, because we know how Cal does this. Cal
didn't want to recruit him at first.
He doesn't recruit in the state of Kentucky. He doesn't want to unless he feels like the outside pressure. And obviously with Jeff Sheppard winning a national title with the Cats, it made it a lot easier. But I mean, for the first half of the season, he just didn't want to even put him on the floor. He was telling the basketball bennies, you don't know what you're talking about. He's just not that good. He's not ready for the time. Obviously, he was. I get that he thinks, Cal might have been the reason he made that change, and maybe he was. Maybe something was going on in practice that we didn't see. Something that I couldn't believe that I saw. I would have supported him wearing, like a Du Fiero Arkansas jersey before just a plain Arkansas shirt. At least there's the teammate connection there. There's a little bit more a brotherhood that goes into that. But just a plain Arkansas shirt, you have no connections, nothing to that. You're just not connected. You can say your teammates play there, whatever. I don't see you wearing an Ohio State shirt to, support Aaron Bradshaw. That's all I'm saying on it.
No, I agree. And I was obviously younger, but I don't remember or see any pictures of, Patino players wearing Louisville gear and, sitting or tweet. Well, I guess Twitter wasn't a thing, but getting on Facebook or whatever in '08 or '09 when they beat us, and start talking shit. So I mean, I don't get it. And then you got guys like Ty, who when he was here I really liked, but tweet out, walk in your trap, take over your trap. Like, dude, this was your trap. You were here. You weren't in Arkansas. Like, I get it. Like you're frustrated, but again, Cal left on his own. All these guys, I forget which former player it might have been Toppin that tweeted out like, y'all are lame as hell for doing, or no, it was Higgins. Y'all are lame as hell for doing my coach like that. Like, come on, man. I mean, he did plenty. But if you notice, all the guys that don't feel a connection to this place are all the ones that didn't have any success here. Like, let's just be real. You hear guys like Willie, John Wall, they talk about their Kentucky till they die. They'll love Cal, they'll go support him at Arkansas, but at the end of the day, it's Kentucky. Those are all the guys that were really good here and had a lot of success here. And, I mean, whatever. If guys like Ty Washington don't want to come back in 5 years, who cares? We got plenty of other NBA players that'll be sitting there, and guys that were a lot better. And last point, Willie made it a few weeks ago on KSR, but he said something to the effect of, Cal's only going to be at Arkansas a few years. You want a place you can call your home forever. And some of those guys, I think, just completely tarnished that. And Reed, I think, can work his way back into the good graces of the fans because he's from here, dad, all that stuff. But like, those guys like Ty Washington and Ashton Higgins, well, they'll never be welcome back.
The funniest part is that these are all career G Leaguers that are the ones that are taking shots at the Kentucky fans about doing Coach Cal dirty, as they would say. Jacob Toppin, Davion Mintz, Ashton Higgins, and Ty Washington. These are all guys who have sniffed some time in the league, but for the most part are just G League travelers. So I think it is kind of funny to hear that. But again, I mean, it is what it is. It was kind of the sign-up you had when you had Cal. You knew there were going to be guys who didn't necessarily care about the university, but just wanted to get to the next level.
But it is funny. The guys that do care about it are the ones that were really freaking good here. Like it's just funny how that works out, I could see it. John Wall, a kid from North Carolina, has no connection to Kentucky, comes here for 1 year, but Kentucky's always going to be home for him. It's always going to be home for Boogie. Like,
De'Aaron Fox from Texas, guys bawling after they lose. I mean, there's some guys just want it more and they feel that connection with the fans more. Just kind of how it is.
Our favorite player ever, I mean, he didn't play for Cal, but Rajon Rondo comes out and talks about how Cal needs to go. And I mean, that's a guy that played in the NBA for however 12, 13 years and was an all-star and one of the best point guards of all time. So,
yeah, I mean, all NBA, all-star, four-time.
We got the guys we won on this side.
I can get going on the dog's name after the guy. I can get going on Rajon Rondo for a whole nother topic. But let's go ahead and let's dive a little bit into this Ole Miss game. Go ahead and switch gears here.
Yep.
Ole Miss 16-6, just gave it a nice little run at Auburn over the weekend. Kept that game close the entire way. Obviously, weren't able to pull it off. What are you looking for? We're going to Oxford. That was the Cats' biggest win in the football season. Think we can go down there and get another big win?
Yeah, I mean, we need it. Yeah, Ole Miss 23rd in the net rankings. 5-6 in quad one games. Outside of that, they've taken care of all their business in quad two or worse games. Obviously, a physical team, very well coached team with Chris Beard. I mean, they play kind of a more boring style, but he's always been one of my favorite coaches. I feel like he really gets the most out of anybody that's plays for him. I mean, they went to Alabama and won by 10. They've lost some really close games to other really good teams in the conference. Mississippi State by 3, lost by 1 to A&M. So, I mean, it's going to be another fight tomorrow night, and you better be ready to be physical and go to work.
Yeah, Cats need to find a way to make the university 2-0 in Oxford.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way. If the football team is going to pull out that victory, the basketball team's got to be able to back it up.
Maybe their basketball team feels like they owe us one, though.
And maybe they do. We kept them out of the playoff for that game, so maybe they feel like there's some animosity and they got to get us back for that. But two guys to watch for in this game: Sean Padula,
Yep.
averaging 15.2, shooting over 40% from three. And let's see, who else do we have here? And Jalen Murray, scoring 11 points per game, also shooting over 40% from three. They don't shoot all that many threes, as some teams that we've seen, like Alabama and like Florida, but they are a pretty solid shooting team from the 3-point line, and especially those two guys in particular.
Yeah, they average 77 points a game, or a little over. Very well-balanced scoring. I mean, they got, 6 guys that score 9 or more points. Yeah, I mean, Chris Beard's always going to have a really good team. They may not be, great, but they're always going to be one of the tougher games you play, and tomorrow night's going to, I don't know. I felt like for sure Kentucky wasn't going to win this game, but after Saturday, who knows, this team always finds a way to win the ones that we don't feel like they should. They are still ranked, so I guess that's a positive.
Yep, that's what I was saying. We needed them to stay ranked for this game. They just snuck in. They're ranked 25th for this week. And something that I'm really looking forward to in this game is Ole Miss leading rebounders only getting 5.9 rebounds per game. So they're not the best rebounding team, or at least they don't have that one guy that goes and gets them the majority of their rebounds. I'm looking for Amari Williams having a big game in this game. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lead off here. Normally, I throw it to you to see what your prediction is. I'm going to lead off here. Anytime I think this team's not going to win the game or they're going to win the game, for the most part, they've been doing the polar opposite. I don't feel great about this game. That being said, I'm going to take the Cats. I think they're going to win this game 87-82. I think Amari keeps rolling. I'm not going to say he's going to have another 22-11 game, but just letting you know, I've already put a little money on Amari's overs for tomorrow's game.
I like it. I'm gonna try to do the old reverse jinx and hope I'm wrong, but man, I mean, this is a good team. I think this is just one of those physical games. I'll say Ole Miss gets a little above their season average, and they win it 83-79. Again, hopefully I'm wrong. Let's go with a bounce back game for Kobe. He hits a couple threes. Plays more like how we saw at Tennessee.
What do you think, since you picked the Cats to lose in this game, what do you think needs to go right for the Wildcats to be able to come away from Oxford with a W?
I mean, we got to shoot more threes, I think. Obviously, this, again, we didn't really dive into it, but only 23 attempts, it's not going to cut it. The offense has got to get back to working the ball around. They got to have more than 11 assists, and they got to attempt more than 23 threes, I think.
Yeah, and there's one thing. If we're not going to get up those threes, we have to have those back cuts with full authority. Our
Absolutely.
Back cuts, for the most part, are super lazy. It looks like we're coming off of screens very hard and very fast when we have a chance for a three-pointer. But those back screens, I mean, you see them. We get a couple of games. Kobe had a nice back cut in the game against Arkansas. Amari found him, and he got the dunk. If we do those with authority, I don't know if you've been watching the Journey videos that UK's posted on their YouTube, but Pope enforces that throughout the entire game, like cut with authority.
Yeah.
Feels like sometimes this team just doesn't do that. I feel like that's what leads us to not getting open threes, because they don't have to respect the back cuts that we're doing. So if we're not going to have 25 to 30 threes like we want this team to get up, they're going to have to be able to back cut with some sort of authority.
Yeah, and then agree completely. But real quick before we sign off, I mean, how about the idea that right now and possibly we're setting up to play on Wednesday in the SEC tournament. We're the 9 seed right now if the season ended today, and we'd be playing on Wednesday at 4-4. I mean. And without Lamont, there could be some more losses that pile up. So
you still have to play Missouri, Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee, and Ole Miss.
Alabama, Missouri on the road, Ole Miss obviously on the road.
And that's with us starting in the 9th position as of now. I mean, all things are looking like we're going to be playing Wednesday in Nashville. I get there on Thursday, so boy, I really hope we don't repeat what's been going on these past couple of years. I don't like that you threw that out there on me this early in the season.
My bad.
I like you threw that bad juju at me there.
It's got to be talked about. I thought we were probably safe after we beat Tennessee, but then when you followed up by losing to one of the worst teams at home, it's right back on the table.
Yeah. Well, how about we go ahead and steal one here.
That'd be nice.
Beat South Carolina. That one should be. We keep saying these should be games, should be a win. And then just take care of business at home. You obviously beat Tennessee once. You got the firepower to be able to do it, even though they looked great over the weekend.
Yeah, they did. They looked really good.
We just got to find a way to string wins together. We're 1-3 in our last 4 games. We've got to find a way to start stringing games together.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully they do. Let's. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Let's just go on a run here. At Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee at home, at Texas. Those are 4 winnable games. Winnable. They're still tough, but let's just get a little streak going. Hell, maybe 5 in a row until we get to Bama.
Yeah, I'm saying even right after that's Vanderbilt. So give them a little payback. This is obviously a long episode for us here. We've touched on a lot of topics here. Cats need to find their way back.
Still no Tyler Britton.
Still no Tyler Britton. But I will say you did agree with him on getting Trent Noah more minutes. So maybe you and Tyler are becoming a little bit more alike. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing for you.
God, I would have to quit this pod. If I'm starting to become him because I'm talking to him too much, I think for my family's sake, I would have to quit.
I completely agree with you on that one. Before we keep taking more personal shots and people catching more personal strays, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. Cats Talk Podcast. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram. Wherever you can get your content, we're on there. Follow us everywhere. Go Big Blue. We got to get on a run here.
Go Big Blue. Let's go on a run.